Hi, folks. So, just from my very, very limited understanding, from what I've learned, which is, yeah, I've never really studied the situation, but from the very, very limited understanding that I have, I know after the First World War, the German people were treated by the rest of the world as basically inhuman, as worthless. Well, the problem is that encouraged them to see other people as inhuman and worthless. That encouraged them to look to a character like Hitler as a saviour, as someone who could lead them out of that. The West, after the war, didn't look at their part in creating the monster. We were very lucky, really, very lucky, that we didn't have a third world war. Because when you fail to learn from your mistakes, you're far more likely to actually repeat them. And thankfully, we didn't in that way. But I say that's more luck than judgment, really. It is. It's a more luck than judgment situation that, yeah, we were in that sense because, yeah, when you want to make it all about the nastiness of the side that lost and how evil they were, and yes, what monsters they were, yes, but then failed to recognise how those monsters were created. Because again, this is the point. If you understand how the monsters were created, then you understand why the people of Germany found it so easy to do the things that they were doing. But we have this thing in society where, and probably always have, where the winners, generally speaking, they don't look at what they've done wrong. You know, those people in the First World War that won didn't look at how the First World War was really started and what part they played in helping it to start. And so the Second World War happened. The warning signs were there, weren't they? Yeah, for the Second World War, the warning signs were there. Yeah. But again, it all stemmed from the aftermath of the First World War, and people wanting to punish Germany and the German citizens for the First World War. Yeah. And look at what happened after the second. The German citizens were punished even more, and the city split up into two. Berlin. Yeah. And those people that just happened to be on the East Berlin, oh my God. We in the West, yeah, especially nowadays, we couldn't even comprehend the lives that those people had afterwards. I mean, Germans for a long time were made to remember the Second World War, weren't they? They were hit with it as a stick to beat them with, to beat that nation with for a long time after the war. We're very, very lucky that they didn't go down an even worse route again. But there you are. They didn't. But yeah. Yeah. As I say, it's just that point of go deeper, understand, ask God to help you to go deeper in your understanding of things, because you have one life, you might as well learn. I'm happy with what I've learned. I'm happy with the fact that I watched that Nuremberg, the film, whether it's called Nuremberg. Good film. It was a good film. But again, I was struck so much by the film about the fact that never before in war had they actually done this. Had they had trials on how evil and nasty the losers actually were. Because I think in every single war you could have had that. And yeah, yes, the things they showed. Yeah, when they showed the human bodies in the fires or the remains of, that was horrific. But it then made me think about why would they do that? And it made sense. It did. It just... I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying it's right to do that because it's inhumane. But you can understand it. If you've devalued those people enough to gas them in a chamber, then yeah. And again, devaluing people, yes. The lives of the Germans were so crap for so long that they needed someone to blame. Because generally speaking, in the world, I was watching the episode 9 of Landman. In that, the daughter goes to college and she ends up in a dorm room with a person who is a sort of she who's now sort of a he, and this person is vegan. This person wants a safe space, everything about the person. And then the daughter says to her mum, I can't stand this, I need to leave. When she's talking to her mum later about why this person is, the mum said this person hates themselves and they're trying to find someone to blame. And that's true. You can see that's true, but that's the point. And yeah, the reality is there's so many people that are in that situation that they hate themselves and they just want to find somebody to blame. And between the First and the Second World War, yeah, the German lives were horrendous. And when they see the Jewish people doing brilliantly well, yeah, they're the ones in charge of the banks and in charge of this and that and this and that. I think they were doing well. And the reason why they were doing well is because for a long time Jewish people have understood to help each other out. And to be a community, and if a new Jewish family moves in, they get help from the Jewish people that are already successful to help them to be successful. And so therefore they become successful. But if you're German, you look at that and you think they're keeping you down. By keeping themselves up, they're keeping you down, when the reality is they were never keeping German people down at all. They were never focused on keeping German people down. They were focused on keeping themselves up. But there you go. When you're suffering and when you're struggling, you want somebody to blame. And so, yeah. They had the ideal people there to blame, the people that have been blamed throughout time. The people that have been hated by nation after nation after nation after nation after nation. So, yeah. Again, it doesn't make it right. And understanding it doesn't in any way, shape or form mean that you're saying it's right. No. Because again, is it right to blame someone else for your troubles? No. The best thing you can do is focus on your own troubles and deal with it. Deal with it. Lift yourself up. Maybe learn from them. If you see that the Jewish people have a good system going, then use their system. It doesn't mean you've got to put them down. It doesn't mean you've got to devalue them to a point where you can round them up. You can separate children from parents. You can tell them that they're going for a shower when really you're going to gas them to death. You can use their bodies as, wood to keep the fire going, to heat the camp. Yeah. Well, actually, to heat the camp mainly for the officers and not for the prisoners. No. But again, understanding it from the point of view that human rights had basically made it illegal to just shoot people in the head who weren't fighting you, right? You had to take them as prisoner. Well, no point in history before had that really been a case in a massive war. So now you've got all these mouths to feed, all these bodies to keep warm, which had never happened before. So, yeah. It's a problem. And, yeah. If you've already devalued people, then you've already provided yourself with a already way of not caring if you use their bodies in a most horrendous way. Well, even things like they were using people for testing chemicals and testing all different things, weren't they? But again, you can understand that. If you've got prisoners of war, how easy is it to get volunteers to be tested for chemical warfare? Not very easy at all, is it? And why use animals when you've got all these human beings here that you've already devalued to worse than animals? Yeah, why use a rabbit when you've already devalued these people to worse than a lovely fluffy rabbit? Use him. Again, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it makes sense. You can understand it from that point of view. You have to devalue people, but once you've devalued people to that degree, it doesn't matter what you do to them. If you're testing them for the effects of chemical weapons, they are tools, and that's what you're using them for. Well, all throughout wars, when prisoners have been taken, they've been taken for a purpose and used for a purpose, either added to the army, or you take women and you would marry them off to your men, and they would make your generations stronger, because you wouldn't be just breeding with the same people all the time. You'd be new people to breed with. So there was always a reason for taking prisoners, wasn't there? They were always going to be used for a purpose. Otherwise, nobody took prisoners out of kindness in wars before. There was always a purpose for it. As slaves, mostly. Rome took them as slaves and gladiators. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, again, if you take someone as a prisoner in a war and you have them sold off as a gladiator and they got a fight in a ring with people cheering as they're being hacked to death, I think that's pretty blinking bad. So that's what they did in the past. I think that's pretty much on par with what the Nazis did. Pretty much on par. I wouldn't say it's worse or better. It's about the same, isn't it? They're both humane, looking at people as worthless, as nothing, as tools for our entertainment or our use. There you go. Take care.